what's really important in those moments is how you repair the relationship with your child. And so what that looks like is, for me, it was sitting with my child and apologizing and saying, I am so sorry.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be such a great day, my friends. We have with us Mandy Harvey. She is a leader in the field of trauma healing, and she specializes in healing highly sensitive, overachieving leaders who are ready to transform not only their physical, but also their emotional pain into purpose. So she speaks a lot about these childhood traumas that can be impacting us today and preventing us from achieving our dreams and finding happiness, which is everything, my friends.
Yes.
So join me in welcoming Mandy. Hi, Mandy.
Hi there. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you because this is what so many of us are struggling with without even knowing it.
Yeah.
We don't even realize the impact that these childhood traumas are having on present day me.
Yes.
Share
Yes.
a little bit with us, please, about what you do and why this is so important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. So what I do is I work with people, whether they are leaders of themselves or leaders of people. I'm on a mission to help leaders clear away the energy that they have stored in their bodies that is from past traumas, that is from emotional wounds that are manifesting in their day-to-day life today. And I do that through talks, through webinars, through online work, through one-on-one sessions. I'm also doing something about hike and heels that we can talk about a little later, these hiking events. But essentially, I work with them using something called somatic experiencing. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, which is a method of trauma healing, as well as functional nutrition, to really help get to the core of where we hold these experiences in our body. The most fascinating thing, I think, is that we don't feel emotions only in our head. We really feel them in our body. So when we've experienced something from the past where we felt like we weren't good enough, or we felt like we had to hide parts of ourselves because we were told we were too much, or perhaps we had to hide a part of ourselves that experienced some really intense abuse or neglect, we grow up with those parts of us still in us. We grow up with those parts of ourselves still in our body. The energy of that is still there. And when we turn a blind eye, or we don't even realize that it's there kind of in the background, it stays until at some point, as we become older and we have more space and capacity maybe to start to look at things, they start to pop up. Maybe that's chronic health issues. Maybe that's emotional outbursts with the people that we love the most. And it's these things that start to pile on, I think. And over time, it's like, oh, we can't do what we really want to do. We can't live that life. We can't find that happiness no matter how many things we try, no matter how many times we meditate, or no matter how many times we use affirmations, or, we just can't access that quite fully. And oftentimes it's because there's something blocking that ability. I refer to it as the trauma-stained lens, that we grow up in a certain experience and we live life with these lenses on our eyes, and they're stained with the experiences and the programming we learned very young. And we just kind of operate in the world with those lenses on until we get to a point where we realize or we experience so much pain and suffering that we decide to make a change. And all of a sudden, when we start to find that purpose, we peel away those lenses and are like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I have that power. I have the opportunity to turn on and put on different lenses. And that starts the process of the healing. And so I love to work with people in that process, because it's an empowering experience, but it's also one that we shouldn't do alone. When we are looking at things from the past, when we are looking at, past wounds or traumas, that process is not something we should be doing alone. oftentimes we need someone there to co-regulate with us, to co-regulate our nervous system so that we can know what it feels like to have that love and support. And that love and support helps pull us out of those experiences.
Yeah, so important. So important. I'm thinking right now about, a listener who might be thinking, well, she's describing me. I've always had this dream. I've known what I've wanted. I keep self sabotaging, or I keep
Yes.
choosing the wrong options when I know what I want, or I keep telling myself that it's just not for me. But I don't I don't identify with someone who had a trauma, quote unquote, in my
Yeah.
childhood. I had a great childhood. I had great
Yes.
parents. I had great upbringing.
Yeah.
So, is this really something important to me? So, thinking about that
Mhm.
person who might be listening, what might you say to them?
Well, what I would say is yes, this message and information is important to you because the self sabotage that we align to, we often have this like belief, and it's kind of in our culture that when we're self sabotaging, there's something wrong with us,
Mm,
that we can't quite actually do that thing. We don't have the willpower to lose the weight, or we don't have the willpower to stick to the diet, or, we don't have this, we don't have the confidence or the, ability to just do this, business or this idea that we have. And it's not actually that there's something wrong with you. That self sabotage is actually an innate experience within our nervous systems where when we start to feel unsafe, when we start to feel um, that we're in an environment, whether that's, trying to lose the weight or trying to change our diet or trying to step out and take a risk and do this really cool business idea, it feels unsafe to our nervous system because we're outside of our comfort zone, and that can often trigger times in the past, whether they were abuse, neglect, or just you didn't feel like you were seen, or your parents didn't feel like your parents really got you or could really support you the way you needed. Those times when we didn't feel safe, when we didn't feel seen or heard, is what's getting triggered in these quote unquote self sabotage moments. It's our body's way of saying, whoa, this feels really unsafe. And so I'm going to protect us because it doesn't feel good to feel this way. And there's a lot of compassion and understanding that it's our survival process, really, that's trying to keep us safe. It's a process from an old programming that we can rewire and we can heal and we can change so that we can step out and do those things that we really want to do.
yeah, really cool, because that's just trying to keep us where we know is the comfort zone,
Yes.
where we know is the safety zone, and taking those risks are scary. And so
Yeah.
that's human.
And it triggers our nervous system, right? We start to feel something in our body when we have that moment of like, "Oh, I don't know that I can do this. Oh my gosh." We start to tense up. We can't take action from that place, right? We can't grow a business, we can't grow an idea, we can't do anything from that place. So we have to turn inward and understand, learn how to navigate our own nervous systems, how to meet them and meet their needs, heal them, and then we can go do those things.
Yeah. Really cool. Okay,
Mhm.
so how do you do that? How do you regulate what do you teach your clients in terms
Yeah.
of regulating their nervous system?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love this. There's a few different tools that I use, but it's all about tuning inward. And sometimes we don't know what our bodies feel like. We've disconnected, right? We're ahead, walking around. We don't know we have a body down here. So first and foremost, it's just getting really curious about how you experience your life. So noticing like and it could be very simple, like when I'm sitting in my office, do I feel happy? Do I feel
Mhm.
nervous? Do I feel sad? When I'm sitting in my kitchen, what do I start to feel? And as we start to get a little bit more comfortable with noticing, how do I experience a person or a room or an environment differently, then it's okay, now how does that show up? How does that show up for me? Am I feeling like, is my chest tight? Are my shoulders tight? Am I relaxed? Am I like totally chill here? Does this person make me feel, safe?
Mhm.
It's first starting to just understand, how am I operating in the world? What do I feel like in different places? then it's taking it a little bit deeper. What is that? How does that expression show up in my physical experience?
So cool. I remember a while ago, a colleague who I really loved. She was a great person to be around, and I really felt a lot of
Mm,
love for her. But every time I was in her space, I noticed that about myself. Like
mm,
my shoulders got really up close to my ears, and my back and my neck got tight. And I thought
interesting.
the same thing. Yeah, isn't that interesting? And the stress and anxiety that we tend to temper down
Yeah.
and say, "I shouldn't feel that way, I
Yeah.
shouldn't feel that way, I shouldn't feel that way." That's that
Yes.
disconnection you're talking about.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, starting to heal this process is all about learning how to navigate your own experiences and getting curious about them. So to your
Mm,
point, it's like when I notice that I'm in a room with a lot of people and all of a sudden I'm feeling really anxious, instead of being judgy or shameful or guilty about it, as soon as you start to notice those, catch them, and shift that into, what is this telling me? Or how can I be curious about this? What does this mean? Not about me that I'm wrong, but what is my body trying to tell me right now? What's coming up for me in this moment? And I think that shift in the mindset of something's wrong with me to actually, this is actually here for me. It's telling me something. I'm going to get curious about it. That shift is huge in terms of learning how to navigate your nervous system and heal it.
yeah, I love it because that curiosity factor takes away the judgment.
Yes.
Kind of you become an investigator
Yeah.
instead of a judge about what's happening.
Yeah, and look, we've all judged ourselves.
I know.
I'm pretty sure everybody has judged themselves at one point or another. And no, that doesn't feel good and it doesn't work for anybody. And so for people who have a hard time getting out of that habit, I was one of those people that I struggled. I was just this chronic judger of myself. I
Mhm.
was always ashamed. I was always felt like there was always something wrong with me. And for me to be able to shift that really took practice. It took me being conscious of listening to my thoughts and becoming aware of like, oh, there I am again. I'm judging myself. Okay. And what am I going to like? Okay, I'm going to shift that. What can I get curious about here instead
Mm.
of judging myself?
One of the areas where I find judgment of myself is the loudest and the most difficult to pay or not to pay attention to, but to support and release and forgive is around parenting. And I know
Mm,
you and I
oh,
were
yeah.
chatting about this before, but
Yes.
when the stakes are so high and it matters so much and you care so much about someone or something, that's when we tend to jump into that judgment zone the
Oh,
quickest.
100%. Yes.
Yeah,
In fact, can I share a story with you about that?
absolutely, please.
This is a few years ago. I would say, actually, it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. My youngest daughter, she is the one that is the loudest. She has the widest emotional range. So she's happy one moment and then crying and screaming the next. And especially when she was younger, she would have these major temper tantrums. And it just would like gnaw on my nerves.
Mm,
And at that point in my life, I was starting to experience these moments of anger and rage that I had never experienced before in my life. I could feel any other emotion but anger, and I hid anger for a very long time. And it was just kind of coincidental that this started to happen all at once. Like she was having these major emotional outbursts, and I would have this major anger. Like I could just feel it like bubbling up in my body. And I was like, what? I was just trying to push it away. Like I don't feel anger. Like I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm whatever other emotion, just not anger. And there was one night where she just was in her most epic screaming, crying, yelling experience. And I'm washing the dishes and I turn around and it was like this fire within me just got to the top and exploded. And I turned around and threw this glass that I was
mm,
washing on the floor. It shattered everywhere, right under her feet. And I looked at her and she was like in major shock and crying. And she was like, I'm so bad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you so mad. And all of a sudden it was like, crap, like, that's not the mom I want to be. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, what is going on? And, all of a sudden that shame and that guilt and that blame started to be there. Like, I'm such an idiot. How could I do this to her? Like, I had my own childhood trauma. Like, I don't want to do this to my kids. And I sat there, and it was one of the moments in my life where I was like, there's something else going on here. Like, I don't normally act like this. I don't normally feel this way. And for me, it became a portal to try and figure out what is going on, what is happening here, because I don't want to be this angry at her. And it was that kind of sent me down the path of really getting deep into my trauma healing and realizing that this anger that was starting to bubble up, that I was hiding and pushing away, and it was coming out at my children, was actually related to anger I held as a child from my own experiences that I had never dealt with or never processed. And the funny thing is, I'd been in therapy for off and on for 20 years, and I had talked about it, and I talked about my story, and I was like, I know my story up and down and sideways. Like, I know every crack of this. Like, how could there be anything left? And that was really when I started to understand that even though I had intellectualized the story, my body also had a story. And I had never tapped into my body's story of the past and where I held that fear, where I held that anger. And the longer I pushed it away, the more it started to bubble on out.
If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that story, because I think as mothers, that can be the most painful experience, but one that so many of us share and we don't talk about, because that is the most the person you want to hold and nurture the most. And especially when you've been doing the work on your own childhood trauma, the last thing I want to be is the cause of my children's trauma.
Exactly.
And there is so much shame behind there. So thank you. And thank you for sharing with us that we're not alone in that. We all have moments like that.
Yes.
And it is those high stakes moments that seem to bring these times out. And I applaud you for inspiring us to look at it from a lens of curiosity instead of judgment once again, because if we judge ourselves and tamper it down, we'll never address it. It'll just happen again and again in a different form.
It will. And here's the thing, we're all human. I've been on my own trauma healing journey. It's been 30, almost 30 years by now. And I'm still learning things about myself that I have, hidden away, or I'll experience something in the present moment and it'll trigger a memory from the past. And it's like, oh my gosh, our childhoods are so intertwined with joy and sadness and love and neglect, or there's just a web of things that happen that we hold on to, that we don't ever get rid of them, and we hold them in our bodies. But here's the one thing I'll say about being a human, about being a mother, about being a parent, is that I learned this when I was going through therapy, and I used it a lot because I started therapy after that, and I did body-based type of therapy to really understand the energy of this. And there were still moments where I would have outbursts and I would feel this anger, and I just couldn't stop it in the moment. But what's really important in those moments is how you repair the relationship with your child. And so what that looks like is, for me, it was sitting with my child and apologizing and saying, I am so sorry that I said that to you or that I acted that way. I'm so sorry I hurt you. I apologize. Will you please forgive me? I love you. Mommy didn't mean that. You're not bad. You didn't do anything wrong, or whatever that repair looks like. But it's the repair that's most important,
Mm.
because then it teaches the child it teaches them a healthy way in that relationship versus, you have an outburst and you leave the room, or tell them to go to their room. You're teaching them a different story. You're teaching them, I must be hidden, or I'm bad. I did something wrong. And so it's the repair, really, that's most important. We're all going to have outbursts. We're all going to yell, regardless of how much healing we've done, in my opinion. But I think it's the repair that really matters.
Oh, that's so valuable. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I did cut you off. You mentioned, because we were getting on such a juicy tangent there.
That's okay.
So you mentioned the awareness as the most important part, the curiosity, the paying
Yeah.
attention.
Mhm.
So in that beautiful story that you just illustrated for us, there was great awareness. There was the recognition and then the questioning, what's going on here? Why
Mhm.
did this just happen?
Mhm.
And then recognizing, okay, even though I've been working on this intellectually, my mindset, my positive affirmations, which I
Yes.
love, but
Yes.
only go so far.
Yes, exactly.
Now I'm recognizing there's something going on in my body.
Mhm.
And I can start paying attention. And maybe you even become aware of every time that kind of noise level, decibel level increases, you start feeling your heart rate quickening or
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
breathing shallowing. So you're beginning to get really adept at recognizing those activators and
Yeah.
what it's doing to your body.
Yeah. Right.
What's next? What's the next step?
Yeah. So for me, what I think is important is, I'll make a distinction here. So if you're, in that scenario with my daughter, and I'm feeling the anger start to rise, if I would have been further on in my healing journey and understood what was going on, that's my past, I'm working on it, I would have left the room
Mm,
before it exploded. So that awareness gives you some precursor warning, right? Like, oh, okay, this is about to happen. Like, I'm feeling this process is happening. Okay, I'm going to leave, because if I let it explode, it's going to explode, and not, it's going to explode over everyone. So I think what's important is, if it's a process like that where you're feeling this intense experience and you feel like there's going to be some sort of explosion, to like leave the room you're in, or separate yourself from other people. So once you're in a place where you're, in a safe, quiet space, what I would suggest is then noticing where you're feeling that in your body. So if it's in your chest, you're feeling it, or your head, your shoulders, place a hand there on your body to just connect to that part of you that's really starting to feel that experience or that emotion. And then use that time to start to validate that emotion. I get it. I get why you are so angry. Even if it's at your kids, I get they're yelling, they're screaming, you can't get anything done. Gosh, I get it. Like, that makes a lot of sense. I understand. I'm here with you. What you're doing is, you're essentially talking to that part of your body that's really kind of holding the energy of that emotion or that experience. And you're just connecting with it. You're validating it. Yes, I get it. This is overwhelming. And it feels weird at first to do this, but I promise it gets a little easier as time goes on. But it's really just kind of connecting to your body in a way that reminds it that it's not alone. So sometimes when we've had past experiences in our childhood, especially, we tend to, those parts who hold the pain, who hold the wounds, tend to drive the train going forward. So they're the ones trying to, keep us safe, swerving to, get away from the painful experiences. But now what we're doing is, we're saying, hey, I'm with you. You don't have to do this alone. I can take control. You can step back, and I understand why you're so upset. Like, I'm here with you. Sometimes in those past experiences, we were alone. We had to do things on our own, and we had to learn, I have to be the independent one. I have to be the one to take charge here. Um, And so this is just reminding our bodies, hey, you're not alone. We're together. We get to do this together and do it in a different way. So it's really about validating that experience, validating our emotions, that it's okay to feel upset. We're human. It's okay to want to yell and scream at our kids or whomever it is, you know. And then it's about asking, what does that part of me need to feel
Mhm.
safe, to feel
Mhm.
seen, to feel loved, to feel healed? Like what does this part need? Sometimes it's like I need to like get in my car and scream at the top of my lungs. Cool, go do it. You know, or it's I need a hug, or it's like I'm just like really sad right now. I need to cry. I need to talk to somebody. Um, I think asking those questions gets us down the path of what does healing look like for me, so that I'm more in tune with my nervous system and I'm more in control of my emotional experiences as I go through the day.
I love that. Absolutely love that, because just feeling the calm that you so beautifully shared after giving self love and attention to that part of you that needed the
Yeah.
love and the safety and the validation. Now I can imagine you walking back into the room with a whole new perspective,
Yes, exactly.
a
Now,
new space to hold for your
yes.
child.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we, with kids especially, that we're the ones kind of helping them regulate their nervous system. So they're tuning into our nervous systems to
Mm.
regulate. And so when they're in a state of emotion or anger or frustration or crying or whatever it is, if we don't have the capacity for ourselves, for our own emotions, for our own, emotional outbursts, because adults have them too. If we don't have the capacity and the compassion for ourselves to do that, we have very little capacity to hold them in their experience. And so it's such an important process. And this is true for, grown kids. This is true for partners. This is true for, work relationships. We won't have the capacity to hold space for someone else, regardless of their age, unless we spend time really building that capacity up for ourselves and for our own emotional experiences.
So true. Oh, so cool. So cool, Mandy. I could talk to you all day about this. This is
Yeah,
so
I know,
exciting.
right?
It's so cool because it does apply to so many aspects of our life. I mean, I'm even thinking about business owners and
Yes.
imagining the business like a child. You know,
Yes.
we get so angry and frustrated when certain things activate us. Either that client doesn't book
Yes.
another session, or that patient turns down the treatment plan, or
Yes.
your team member hands in their notice. And
Mhm.
then immediately we get activated
Yes.
and react in a way that's not aligned with our higher self or the person we want to be or the true authentic person within us. And that's
Exactly.
where that shame and guilt steps in.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I love this process. I actually have a free gift that I can give you the link for to share with your audience too. But
Please.
it's called L.O.V.E. It's an acronym. It stands for Listen, Observe, Validate, and Embrace. And this is a 4-step process that takes you through this experience, and it has a workbook to help you out with that too. But um, at the end of the day, it's like, how do I show myself love in a way that I maybe haven't before? So maybe I haven't really, maybe I was taught as a child that I'm too loud, my emotions are too much, and I'm told stop crying, or go to your room if you need to be upset. Like maybe we were taught that it wasn't okay to show those emotions, and now as an adult we get angry, or we have these emotional outbursts, and they're really just that part of ourselves saying, hey, I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel heard before. And now, all the energy of that is still in your body and it's just exploding. A process like this really helps to calm and dampen that part of us, not in a negative way, but in a way that's really calming and healing, so that we can start to live life and have the resilience and the capacity to have a range of emotional experiences and have the awareness to catch those moments when we're like out of balance and bring us back onto balance.
So cool. We'll definitely put that link in the show notes for anybody who's listening.
Cool.
And also, I understand you're having a fabulous new unveiling of a new website,
I
which
am, yes.
we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. But what exciting things can we look forward to on your new website?
Yeah, I am so excited about this. I'll have a couple new freebies to share with folks who join. So I'll have a freebie about how to decode your fatigue and get to the heart of
Ooh.
what's stealing your energy. I'll have the freebie here that we're talking about on wanting to heal your past so you can create a bigger impact in the world. But there will be also a few other resources available. So I'll have another one being a course, a self-paced 30-day course called Anchored in Success. This is a program to help you regulate your nervous system and to really build up your capacity to live life with all of the emotions and all of the experiences that we're having today, but really build up that resilience and to help heal perhaps some of those chronic health issues that keep popping up as a result of stress and overwhelm.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to check those out. And thank you for that freebie for my listeners as well.
Yes.
And before we leave, I do want to know you mentioned hike and heal.
Mhm.
And when you first called it, you said hike. I have a couple of hike and heels. Sounds like you were talking about hiking in heels.
No.
Which I loved the way that sounded, and I thought that's gonna be tricky on the mountains in Colorado.
Yeah,
But
no,
te
no.
but telling me about hiking and healing and what
Yeah.
you're envisioning in terms of using nature as a
Yeah.
healer.
Yeah, I love this so much. So I use nature all the time in my own healing process, and it's
Mm,
huge to grounding me and bringing me back to the present moment and really calming my mind. So I've, recovering kind of anxious mind here, and so getting grounded in nature has been so important for me. And I wanted to just teach others and repay this this gift with guided hiking sessions where we will use a 90-minute hike, fairly easy hike, to start to learn how to navigate your nervous system and use nature to start to bring some relief and healing to your nervous system. It'll be a group of people where there are times where we're hiking and we're talking about certain things, some things related to nutrition, how we hold emotions in our gut or, in our liver or our pancreas, and how to support our bodies holistically, as well as using some somatic experiencing types of tools to regulate your nervous system using the support of nature. And as a group, too, getting a chance to build community in a way that I think is really needed right now.
oh, I love all of that, using all your senses and
Yes,
then
yes,
getting that oxytocin flowing
yes,
from that
exactly.
supportive environment of community.
Yeah,
Really cool, really cool. Oh, thank you for all that you do, Mandy. I'm so excited to know you, and I'm
yeah,
so
thank
excited for
you.
my audience to be meeting you and checking out all the resources that you have to offer. And even on your Instagram page, which I'll definitely put a link to as well, you've got some really great little reels about snippets and little supportive tools that you
Thank
offer
you.
to the audience. So I really love that as well. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes, I appreciate it. I would love to connect with anyone who wants to connect with me on Instagram or follow me on my website. It would be great.
Absolutely. You're doing awesome there. So before you leave us today, my
Okay.
friend, please share with us what is your definition of happiness?
Ooh, my definition of happiness is um, hmm, happiness is a ebb and flow, I think, for
Mm,
me. And that is that we can experience happiness at any point in life, and it's unconditional, and it's found in the most simplest of moments, regardless of the chaos around us.
beautiful. I love that because I'm still picturing you hiking in the woods, and then I heard a kid in the background. It was perfect timing. As you
Yes.
said, the chaos around us, somebody let out a whoop in the background.
Awesome.
Perfect. Divine timing. Thank
Exactly.
you, Mandy. Thank you for sharing your
Yeah,
truth with us today. And please stay in touch. I would love to
absolutely.
have you back on the show.
I would
It's
love that too.
so awesome to get to know you and just to be inspired by the wealth of knowledge and the incredible things you're doing in this world. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for joining us here today. Please check Mandy out. You will love her Instagram page if that's where you like to show up, but definitely take advantage of this awesome freebie and the LOVE acronym: listen, observe, validate, and embrace, and using it as a powerful tool to support you. And as always, my friends, remember, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye bye.